shit, I read a hell of a lot of books in December 2018. Hello everybody, Nora back again. Let me start this by just saying a happy new year to everyone. I hope 2019 exceeds our expectations and is one of the most fantastic, brilliant years we've had. And I just hope we just have a lot of reasons to smile in the new year. So let's kick things off with the very first book I read in December, and that was Merry Inkmas by Talia Hibbert. Now, Chandler of Chanda Ainsley put out a tweet on Twitter asking if any of us was interested in a group read to read the book. And I was like, oh yeah, sign me up. It sounded right up my alley. It was marketed as being warm, cozy, Christmassy. There was a bad boy with tattoos. There was a nerdy, geeky girl. And it was meant to be smutty. And I'm like, all 5 things I love in my life actually make that 6. I cannot count. All 6 things I want in my life. And I'm like, how, in what universe am I meant to say no to this? So I said yes, and it was free. Yeah, I think it was free on Kindle for a while. So I got the book. I read it. It was not what I expected. It delivered on being warm and cozy and Christmassy. Yes, and there was the tattoos. I didn't really see the love interest as being a bad boy, but it did have tattoos, which was a plus. My problem was the fact that there was practically zero smut. You know. Practically zero smut, which is annoying when you set your hopes on the book being smutty. I think there was like 1.5 scenes of smut, and that was all we got. And I'm like, I'm sorry, is that really all? Just in case you've not figured it out, I'm really pained about the fact that I did not get my smutty fix in December. But just in case it's still right up your alley, it's a book about a barrister who has this opportunity of a lifetime to get with a customer she has been eyeing for a while, a customer who is meant to be a bad boy tattoo artist with, not meant to be, who is a bad boy tattoo artist, you know, with a past, but then she has a past as well, and it's just basically them walking through their past and their demons to get together. So that's what basically Merry Inkmas is about. I gave it a 2.5 stars because, I repeat, there was not enough smut, and I found the characters just a tad bit bland. I didn't find them interesting. They didn't really stand out to me, but I did appreciate the fact that the lead character is a black woman and not your stick figure type black woman either. And I love the fact that she was a geek, and I love the way Talia Hibbert worked in tattoos into the story because I'm a sucker for tattoos. But I'm going to give it a 2.5 star. The next book I read is Huntress by Malinda Lo. This book. See, I had such high expectations for this book because some of my friends had read Ash and they like really loved it. And when I found out that this Huntress was set a couple of centuries before Ash, I was like, okay, it's a perfect time for me to read it and, you know, get familiar with the world and everything else. This book, I could not stand the characters. I did not find their motivations believable. I did not find their romance believable. I found it instant love. I did not like the way it started. I did not like the way it was portrayed. I was not really a big fan. I could not stand the way Malinda Lo had this thing for jumping across different characters' heads, and she had this constantly shifting / changing point of view that just which is just annoying because this book had everything I wanted to be. It's meant to be, it's a sapphic YA fantasy novel where you have 2 girls set out on a journey in order to save the kingdom from this increasing winter that is killing their crops. The sun has not been out for like forever. Weird and strange beasts keep appearing, strange children. Like, this book had everything in it to be a book I would love, and I did not. And I am really pissed about it because although I loved a magical world building system in the book, there were so many other things I did not like. Like I said, the romance, the characters, the failed sense of urgency, and the way in which she wrote the point of view. It was just not for me. I gave Huntress a 2 star by the time I was done with it, and boy, am I glad I was done with it. The next book I read in December was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Now, I'd heard so many great things about this book. My owner of my honors reads loves this book. Chandler of Chandler Ainsley loves this book. Binta, a positive writer, loves this book. Like, I've heard so many great things about it. But you know, when a book is so hyped and you're worried that it would not live up to your expectations? Yes, that was me with this book, except for the fact that I am happy to say that Holly Black did not disappoint me. And now I wonder why the fuck I've not read any other Holly Black book, because Cruel Prince is perfection. To be precise, Jude is perfection. I love a girl who is kidnapped by the fairy and then who eventually grows to love and becomes so accustomed to fairyland that she becomes more fae than her actual fae sister, which is so mind-blowing. I love that Jude was willing to go through any extent in order to get power. I love that Jude recognized the fact that because she was human, she was weak, and she refused to let that get in her way. And I especially love the fact that she was a total and complete badass and 2 steps away from being batshit crazy. But I love her all the same. I loved Carden. I love me my villains with a strong, compelling backstories for you to be able to see that their life could have turned out a bit differently, just if only someone had stepped in, if only things had been different. And I especially love the fact that Carden fits the ideal fae in my head to a T, because sometimes I think people forget that the fae are vicious. They are vicious and they are cruel, and they consider humans their plaything. And I love just how real that was depicted in this book. Like, I really, really did. I love the fact that this book had such intense world building. Like, I could picture Elfheim so perfectly in my mind. And I also love how The Cruel Prince was character driven. It was mainly all about Jude and how she evolved from the weak girl we saw at the start of the book to the force to be reckoned with we met at the end of the book. And I love character-driven stories. I also love enemies to lovers, which, you know, is actually present in this. This book is actually more character-driven than it is romance-driven, but the payoff is brilliant, it's fantastic. If by some weird-ass reason you have no idea what Cruel Prince is about, all I'll just say is that a human girl was kidnapped by the Fae, and she became more fae than any of them could ever dream of. That's all I would say about this. And of course, it gets a perfect 5 stars from me. Now, after Cruel Prince, I read Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nigan. This book is so hyped. And there are so many amazing booktubers I follow that love and adore this book to bits. Unfortunately, I did not. Although I found the world building lush and vibrant and incredible, like Natasha Nigan actually went out of her way to create a world that is so vivid. Their food, to their clothing, to their culture, to their architecture, to every single aspect of that world building is perfection in itself. But I could not stand the character of Lei, through whom we're seeing the story. I found her annoying. I found her a Mary Sue. I thought that she was a hypocrite. I found her to be a very terrible friend. She was very rash. She was annoyingly obnoxious and oblivious. Like, I just could not connect with the story because of her. Because characters, for me, also make or break a story, and I could not stand her. Which also affected my love for the romance, because although I was happy and eager to read yet another sapphic YA fantasy novel, it's very difficult for you to get into the romance when one of the characters makes you consistently want to reach into the book and punch her lights out. I could not stand the fact that she was very judgmental. She was judgmental of the courtesans. She was judgmental of some of the girls she lived with. I don't know, man. Like, she just kept acting like she was better than everybody sometimes, which I found it grated on my nerves. It grated on my nerves, and also because this was someone who seemed to believe that, oh, she could just blunder through things and was always surprised when the consequences rightfully showed up, which You would think she would have learned after the second or third time, but no, she doesn't. And the end, I'm like, why the fuck was that needed? Was that tacked on? I felt that the story would have been stronger without that scene at the end of the book. I just felt it was irrelevant. I felt it was not needed. I felt it took away from the tension. I felt it could have added to the second book. I also felt that this book, the plot meandered for a long time. Like, it was exciting at the beginning when everything was happening, and then in the middle stretch it lagged and it just meandered all over the place, and then it slightly picked up again at the end. But once again, what really did not sell this book for me was the lead character, Lei. I actually preferred a love interest. I found a love interest more engaging, more fascinating. If this book had been about a love interest, I totally would have been all over that shit. But Lei herself, no. Sorry, but no. What is this book about? Just, it's about a society where there's a caste system in place and the demon class rule over everybody else. And the demon king chooses a girl from the paper caste who are just humans to, you know, be a paper girl, which is basically a fancy way of saying to be a concubine for a year. And Lei is chosen because of her golden eyes, and she conveniently thinks that the only flaw she has is, like, you know, she's very clumsy and she's not as graceful as the other girls, but, you know, everybody still wants her anyway. You know, the usual spiel. But yeah, that's basically it. It's about a patriarchal system where women's needs are subjugated and where women only exist for pleasure to men. And I will admit, though, I like the way that was handled. I like the way in which this book delved into the fact that women's desires in patriarchal society always exist for men, which is the reason why men cannot wrap their heads around the fact that, you know, two women can want to have sex with each other, can be sexually attracted to each other, they just cannot wrap their heads around it, because for so long they believe that, you know, women do not desire sex, rather they are to be desired, so they just can't wrap their heads around it. And I loved how Natasha Nigan put in those bits into the book, which was the reason why I ended up giving the book a 2.5 star instead of the 2 stars I wanted to give it. Yes. The part she did do very well, but this book, it might be for you, but it was definitely not for me, which is sad, because I did want a sapphic YA fantasy novel to enjoy and fall in love with, and I could not with this book. Next, I read What It Means When a Man Falls from the Sky by Leslie Neka-Arima. This was a collection of short stories across different genres. You know, there was contemporary, there was sci-fi, there was fantasy, there was a nod to mythology. I just love the fact that this book covered all those different genres, and in each of them we still saw one connecting thread of family, of the ties that bind us, of the fact that when we continue to give, eventually we will snap. I love the fact that this book dealt with the heavy burdens, the people around us, the people we love, from our families to our friends, to our colleagues, to our lovers, to our neighbors, to our employers, how they keep demanding so much from us until we barely have anything left to give. It, like I said, is a collection of short stories. I thought the world building was perfect. I thought that she was able to make these characters real and engaging, even though she only had a couple of pages to do so. I think she's a master at the art of telling short stories, and I definitely love this anthology, if not for the fact that it is heartbreaking as fuck and very sad, because none of these stories, none of them end happily. I would have been looking forward to rereading it, but now I know every time I have to read it, I just have to brace myself. But I'll give this a solid 4.75 over 5 stars. I thought it was utter perfection. Be warned though, because there is abuse, murder, and infanticide in this book. So the next book I read was The Ones with Purpose by Nozizwe Cynthia Jelen. Now this book, if I was to describe it in a phrase, I would say it's a book steeped in sorrow. It's a book all about pain and all about death. How death in a family can both tear a family and also put it back together. How society would always dim out and dull out the voices of women. How society would always put the needs of men over women. And how systemic and cultural misogyny affects women. It also deals with addiction. It also deals with terminal sickness in the family, because this story is all about our narrator, who is dealing with the fact that her sister Fikile is dying, or rather this book starts right at the bat. Fikile is dead, and then we go back and forth across different timelines to when she's diagnosed, to how things progress, and even to earlier before that, to when they first experienced death in their family. So if you love books that jump across multiple timelines, then you would definitely love this book, because this book starts in the present, then we go to the past, and then we go even several decades into the past. So this book takes place across several decades, but all tied up in grief and rage and depression. But it was so heartbreaking and so sad, and I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. This is a sad book. This is a very, very sad book. Next, I listened to the audiobook of The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, and right off the back, I did not like the narrator. I felt that she had this robotic electronic voice that just sapped away all warmth from the book. Usually I actually like to listen to my audiobooks at like normal speed, but for me to get through that book, you had to be at 1.5 speed. And the only reason why I did not raise it up to 2 times the speed was because when it hit 2 times the speed, I could not catch any of what she was saying. But like I said, the narration took away from the book. I still enjoyed the story though, because like I said, when I increased the speed, I could enjoy what I was listening to. I loved the lush world building. I love the way in which Catherine Arden brought in like Russian folklore and mythology, and how she painted this vivid, rich imagery of the world of Rus, which was, I know, short for Russia. I love historical fantasy. I love the fact that you can see bits of history and you're still seeing mythology existing side by side. Now, what is this book about? This book is about a girl, Vasya. She's a special, brilliant, amazing child, and she's a child who's given a gift and who can see beyond the physical realm. And although initially this was a trait that was appreciated and loved, eventually her people start to turn against her, especially when their lives become crowded with fear. And the more they let go of their old gods and beliefs, the closer the evil that they do, the real evil, comes to their homestead. I love the fact that this book dealt with what the troubles that imported religions comes, and how it totally wipes out indigenous beliefs and cultures, and how when you do not understand why an indigenous belief exists, then not only do you wipe it out and lose it, but you also lose the benefit it brings. I love the fact that this was a feminist book. Vasya is a girl who refuses to be contained. She pushes back a society that will either have her married or locked away in a convent, because she wants to be free. And there's a very, very powerful scene in the book where she's talking to Moscow, and she says that she would rather die in the forest than be locked away in a convent. And you could feel that passion, because you knew that was exactly what she thought. Vasya, for a girl who was living in the 1300s, that was some ballsy ass chick. Vasya was ballsy as fuck. Like, fuck. And I loved the slew of characters that we got, from Sasha to Olga to even Kolya. Oh my god, I love Morusko. Of course, I love Vasya. I felt that the world was rich, both from its depiction and the characters that were in it. The only thing I had a problem with was that annoying fucking ass piece of shit, trash bag, absolute shithead, dickhead priest called Constantine. Constantine is everything that is wrong with religion. Constantine is everything that is wrong with this world. And I went on Goodreads, and I know some people were like, oh my god, you hate him, but you also feel pity for him, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm sorry, I do not feel an ounce of pity for that piece of shit. Constantine is an ass wipe. Is everything wrong with religion that builds itself on fear and only thrives on making the people afraid, because it knows that if the people do not fear it, then they will not believe it, which makes absolute zero sense, because your religion should be able to exist out of fear. Like, I hated Constantine, hated him. It reminded me of Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, that I have expected him to start singing, I see her, I feel her, the sun caught in her raven hair is blazing in me all out of control, like fire, hellfire, this fire. Like, Nothing pisses me the fuck off like hypocritical pieces of shit who mingle desire and hatred and cloak it up in religion. Like, I hated him. The major problem I had with the book, which nobody seemed to notice or mention, was the fact that there was marital rape. Like, I'm sorry, am I the only one who noticed the fact that, you know, for a long time, every single time after Piotr slept with his wife, his new wife, Anna, I like to point out Anna was the same age as his son, but I'll get to that in a bit. Every single time he slept with Anna, she cried. That reads like marital rape to me. And all I'm thinking, I'm like, why is nobody saying anything about that? Because, you know. I love the fact that this book also played on the fact that you understood why Anna turned out the way she did. Because, like I said, she's the same age as Piotr's firstborn, Kolya. And it's understandable that she did not really know so much about these ancient cultures and traditions because she's basically a child. This book deals with just how dangerous ignorance can be and how in trying to, you know, hold on to religion, we can actually push away what it is that is actually protecting us. But I enjoyed the book. I had some issues with it. I was pissed. Every single time Constantine came on my screen, I was like, someone shoot that man, please. Someone burn that man, please. Someone slit that man's throat, please. Someone drown that man, please. Constantine. Piece of shit. But I gave the book a 3.5 stars. I did run it up to 4 stars on Goodreads because I was not sure if it was going to be a 4-star or a 3.5 star read, but I think I will stick with 3.5 star read. So yes. The next book I read after The Bee and the Nightingale is Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. Now this is the most irreverent end of the world book I've ever read. And I found it hilarious. I found it fantastical. It was zany. I could not stop laughing. It was every bit as incredulous and absolute in its absurdity as, like, I don't know, Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Like, the way it's so wild and you're like, what the actual fuck? Like, this is a book that 1 minute you're thinking you're seeing angels and you're seeing demons, and then there's a bit of sci-fi tossed in it because you're seeing aliens, and then you go back to Tibetan monks, and then you're just like regular old witches. Like, this book was all over the place, and I loved the fact that it was all over the place. I have not laughed so much at the thought of the end of the world as I have in this book. I found it funny. I found it hilarious. I loved the slew of characters. Before I started this book, I actually thought that Crowley was going to be my favorite character because, you know, I used to be a huge Supernatural fan. Used to. I used to be a huge Supernatural fan. And then, like, of course, Crowley was, as always, everything I expected. And I loved him. But I also loved Aziraphale. But I actually did not know I was going to love Adam and the Them as much as I did because I loved Adam and the Them. And I just love this book. I just love this book. I had a couple of problems with it though. Not that it went too ridiculous, because the more ridiculous this book went, the more I loved it. My problem was the fact that there was a homophobic slur used twice in this book. Once by a kid and once as a joke. And I was like, I didn't think it was needed. I didn't think it was necessary. I know I read that pattern was jarring. I'm like, what the fuck? Why is this here? And that kind of pissed me the fuck off. But I looked at the publication date and I think it was in 1990. So I know, because I had to flash back and I'm like, I'm sorry, have I read any other Neil Gaiman book where this has happened? Because I do think and I do hope he has grown and he has crossed that stage of trying to use it as a shock factor, because it read like it was used as shock factor and I did not care for it. But I did enjoy Good Omens and I gave it a 4-star out of 5. After Good Omens, I read Geek Out, which is a collection of trans and genderqueer romance. See, the thing about anthologies, especially when it's an anthology that is not written by just one writer, like what it means when a man falls from the sky, is that you have different writers and you have different voices and you have different styles, and there are some stories you will like more than the others. Of course, what ties them all together is the fact that, like I said, it's a trans and genderqueer romance. So, and also the fact that this book is all about geeking out, which I enjoyed because, I'm sorry, I'm on BookTube, I'm talking about books. Of course, I'm a geek. And nothing makes me happy like reading about people who really, really, really love things that they love passionately and are not afraid to show it. And you see this consistently through the book. You see that like you see this with like their love for anime, their love for comics, their love for cosplay, their love for RPG games. Like, it's just all over this book, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the love. I did not really enjoy the book totally and completely, if I'm being honest. I felt that some of it was rushed because not everybody is a Leslie Nekarima who can pull off whole worlds and characters you love in like a couple of pages. Some of these writers did not. Some of them, it was just, I felt the story was too short. I felt that it should have been fleshed out some more. Some of the stories were all over the place, but I did enjoy, like I said, I did enjoy some of them. I think my favorite two stories in this has to be Horse Crazy by Kathleen Rishi, which I loved because one, it's told the story and perspective from an older trans woman, someone who transitioned in the later part of her life, which I felt was actually an interesting read. And I loved how, you know, our daughter was so accepting, and I also loved how the story was basically told, you know, and there was a part at the end where the love interest asks her, that tells her that, you know what, fuck biology, do you feel like a woman? And I just love the things woven in that question, because, you know, not every trans person is cis passing, not every non-binary person is obviously non-binary, and sometimes, you know, when the doubts crowd in, you just have to remember that, does this feel right? Is this me? And when you can answer categorically that yes, then yes, that is you. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed Machiatos and Monsters by Alison Evans. I love the fact that these were two people in their late teens, early 20s, who both had tragic past and who both had hurts, but who both found each other and a mutual love for bad sci-fi movies. I loved watching their romance unfold on screen. It was a bit jagged. The story was a bit jagged, and sometimes it was all over the place, but I enjoyed it. I found it fun. I'll give this book a 2.5 stars over 5, because like I said, there were some stories I enjoyed and there were some stories I was just like meh about. And also, just to be warned though, there is incest in this book, which I was not expecting. So yes, be warned, there is incest and there is polyamory. Polyamory, like, I believe polyamory is the answer to, like, you know, the evil love triangle, especially if it's a love triangle with like two really amazing prospects. And I'm like, why do you have to choose? Why not just poly? But yes, but there is incest in this book. So, and one of the characters catfished their love interest, you know. Yes, that was also a thing. Next, I read Zahra the Windseeker by Nightingale from Bachu. I love this book. I gave it a solid 5 over 5 star. I found the world magical. I found it beautiful. I love the mix of, you know, West African culture in a foreign planet, because this is sci-fi. They are not on Earth, and I love the fact that in this book you could clearly see Inedy's love for animals and insects, because she has mentioned in interview that she has this. She really, really, really loves insects. And you could tell in this book, because some of these creatures are so fantastical and magical and also so biological that you recognize them and you enjoy them and you're like, oh my God, I know this and everything. But like, I enjoyed this book. I thought it was a fun read. I thought it had so many powerful things to say, you know, about not being afraid of your own power, about not letting others define who you are, about never letting go of your curiosity, about putting yourself out there because you just might surprise yourself. I loved so many parts about this book. I really, 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 really enjoyed it. I think this is my favorite Inedy book so far. I'm actually looking forward to the book that will top this on my list, because this book is pretty high up there and it's a middle grade book, and like, I am going to read this several times over. Like, I love this book. And get this, the romance. You know what I said about Nnedi? Because I've mentioned it before that I think Nnedi Okorafor has a problem with writing romance in her books, because she does not take the time to develop the relationship, nor do I find that romance is believable. Like, I can eventually believe that Dari and Zahra would end up together. Do you know why? Because the seeds are there and they are beautiful and it's amazing and fantastic. Like, I love Zahra. I love that girl is the bravest 13-year-old girl you would ever meet, because Zahra is fucking terrified, but she keeps going. Like, she is amazing. Zahra is amazing. I love Dari, and I also love Compass, who is a compass called Compass, but an entertaining compass as fuck. I love that compass. So yes, 5 star over 5. Last books I read in December are Shadow and Bone and Siege and Storm, both by Lee Bardugo. These books are a study in patience. You know, it's one thing for you to have read them the first time and be like, I cannot stand Alina, I cannot stand Mal. But it's another thing for you to reread it and realize that you really, really cannot stand Alina and really cannot stand Mal, because this book is a study in patience and what the fuckery, because this too would have you think what the fuck so many times. The word becomes redundant and you just, all you can say is were. This book will have you saying were because you'll not even bother completing it, because before you can finish that thought, they will do something else or say something else and have you saying were all over again. What the fuck? See, in fact, reading this book actually makes me realize the fact that I cannot stand Alina, right? I cannot stand her ass. But she's miles better than Malia Orestev. Now that is an absolute piece of garbage, boy. And the worst part about it is that, see, you don't really know just how annoying Mal is. Like, in Shadow and Bone, it was not there for most of the books. So, although I was irritated with Alina, I did not feel like going into the book and punching anybody because I was just irritated. She just pissed me off. But not to the point of wanting to punch her or anything. Like, I was just pissed the fuck off. And Mal was not in Shadow and Bone. The only time he really showed was through Alina's, memories and thought. That's when you really saw him, until you saw him at the end. But it was not really here. But see, Siege and Storm, we got a full frontal view of Malyan Orestev in Siege and Storm. And all I can say is, this boy is stupid. This boy is a dumbass piece of shit, low self-esteem, garbage, hot garbage. I was just reading this book, and all I could think is, Alina, what the fuck do you see in this piece of garbage? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck do you see in this piece of garbage, boy? This book was a study in patience. What a way to end 2018. I cannot even... Just in case you do not know what it's about, this is a book about a girl who discovers she has powers, and a stupid ass boy child who does not deserve her, but who she loves irregardless, and you wonder, what the hell does she see in him? A book where you have all the side characters being way more interesting than the two main characters, and you're like, seriously? Yes, that is Shadow and Bone trilogy for you. I gave Shadow and Bone 2.5 stars, and I gave Siege and Storm 2 stars. The only consolation I have right now is because I know I preferred Ruin and Rising to both books, but I think that was because Alina finally had some sense and Mal learned to just shut the fuck up. Yes, I think that's it. So I'm looking forward to, reading that book so I can have this trilogy behind me, and then I can move on to better things, Yes, so those were the books I read in December, all 12 of them. Yes, I read a lot of books in December. Yay me. Let me know down in the comments below which books you read in December, which ones you loved, which ones you enjoyed, which ones you could not stand. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I make new videos every Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I will see you soon. Bye.